Hello, everybody. It is I, Stippling Vaughn, at my local dive bar working, and we are on week 29 of daily signed comics being posted on Twitter. And you will see that we are at days 194 through 200 being discussed. I just posted day 207, so we're almost completely caught up from being behind. Hopefully, I'll be doing a video tomorrow. If I do a video tomorrow, then it will be issues 201 through 207. And this page that I'm working on is page 1 of the Printer's Devil for John's Longbox. So, right now, I'm just working on this uh, beam here. Now, the first panel, or not the first panel, but the second panel, it's completely done. So, you can see how I've done it where we're looking from outside the hut inside to the hut, and you can see he's putting a log on the fire. Now, the big thing about him putting a log on the fire is I didn't want him putting a big log because they're slaves, so they don't get logs, they get small tree branches. And so that's the reason why, if you take a look, that's the reason why I don't have these logs as being big but relatively small, and he's putting a small branch onto the fire. And you can see up here where I've got some tree branches here outside the house. So, and I'm working on this black part here because I will work on this afterwards after the video's over, but I really want to focus and get that right, so I don't want to do that while I'm talking to you guys. So this right here is a good thing to work on, the beam here in the corner. And because we're focusing on the light source being here, that's why you're going to have darks here. That's the reason why the grain of the wood is dark here, light here, and then goes dark. Same thing over here. And that does two things. Is it creates, so it's going to be darker here and darker here, so it's light here. But then also, I can focus on the darks, because like the light source is here, therefore here, here, this part here, it's going to be dark. So, and she's going to be dark on this side of the face, so that way it doesn't compete with the background. So that's one of the reasons why I'm doing what I'm doing. So that's where I'm at here with it. So I'm having fun doing it. And at home, I'm working on the pencils for the trading card. So I won't show that to you guys until after I've completed it. I've sent it to John, and then if he posts it as work in progress, I take that as a green light that I can work on it during these videos. But if he doesn't post it, then I'll work on something else, and I'll work on that after I'm done with the videos. So then so now back on topic, which is we are at day 194. Day 194 was official handbook of the Marvel Universe, the X-Men of 2004 edition, and I have it signed by Sean Chen. He did one of the artwork. He did the artwork for one of the entries, or actually a couple of the artwork for a couple of the entries. So that's why I got him to sign it. So I'm very happy to have it. And then after that, we go to day 195, 196, and 197. This is Origin. Now, this is the Origin of Wolverine, but it's not called the Origin of Wolverine. It's simply called Origin. And this, I have the whole series signed by Paul Jenkins. I feel very lucky to have Paul's signature on the entire series. This was for me, I felt that this was a series that was long awaited by the fans. The fans have always wanted to know what Logan's origin is. And for me, it was, we've always been getting hints of his possible origin, but never anything concrete. So like many people, I was really excited that this we're finally getting the origin, and I personally feel they did a very good origin for it, showing that we get the sense that the young child of the manor, we we just know that he's a sickly little boy and he's being cared for by a girl by the name of Rose. She's been brought in from one of the local villages to be essentially his nanny or his companion, friendship and all. And the groundskeeper, he has a son named Dog. Now, the grounds the groundkeeper, he looks like an adult Wolverine or an adult Logan. His name is actually Logan. So it was these first two issues were quite good because you get the sense of what happened and where we think that the story is about Dog and Logan. We discover that no, the young boy who's sickly all the time, his name's James. He's the one who actually has the claws. He's the one that will be called Wolverine, or this is the person who and there's what was the young boy, James and Rose, they play, and Dog is the groundskeeper's son, and he's just a little bastard. And you get the sense like, oh, this is who Wolverine is. He was a little bastard as a kid. Find out, no, he's not. And it just the first two issues cover James, and then we discover at the end of I think it's the end of issue one we discover that James has the claws, and that's the big reveal at the end of the first issue. And then, of course, at the end of the second issue, they have to run away, and when they get to where they're going, when they ask what's your name, she doesn't say his name's James or James Hewlett because she doesn't want anybody to know who he is. So she refers to him as the groundskeeper's name, which is Logan. And then we fast forward to the end of the series where, and Rose, of course, is a redhead. And of course, we get to the end of the series where Rose is inadvertently killed accidentally uh, by Logan. At this point, that's what James is being called, Logan. And he, out of duress and heartbreak, he runs out into the wilderness to live with the wolves, which very possibly that's where he stayed until uh, uh, he was discovered by Department H. So it was. I enjoyed the series. I enjoyed this series very much. Okay, I don't want to get in here to competing with her, so I'm just going to leave that where it is. So we'll go over to this side here, and we're going to work on the bricks. Now remember, we're going to do these bricks as jet black. Well, not jet black, as black as you can get it with the stippling and the dots. And I'm using the used up nib. That's where you get a wide fat dot, which is perfect for doing these black areas. Whereas up here, I used a new nib, so the dots are all fine and dainty. So you'll see how I like to do that. I like to for like this is for like the background or for uh, like I said, spot in the blacks. I'll use and in the environment, and I'll just spot it with this used up nib. But for the fine dots here in his hand and his arm, I went with the newer nib, so that way you get a different texture from the dots, even though you're still putting dots down, which is important when you're working. It's just like how when you do cross hatching, you want to differ your cross hatching on a brick wall versus a tree versus a person's face, and you want to differ your cross hatching, and then along with that, you want to use a different nib so you have a different line when you're doing that type of cross hatching. So and that's the reason why I'm just going heavy with here. So we have those just that jet black, but we know that but from the whites we're putting in and whatnot, we can tell that they're bricks. Because remember, even though I'm trying to render this as even though I have a lot of details, even no matter how detailed, the father is, whether I do him so he's super detailed like George Perez, or let's say I do it really abstract, let's say like Josh Middleton. Okay, you're still all you're drawing is a symbol. That's all it is we're drawing symbols. So that's the reason why I want this is not this area why I need to do it, and while it's important to the overall image, it's not that important to it. The purpose of this being blocked with a fat dot is to help him with the fine dots pop. So so that's why I'm doing this. And what I might do is, and what I'll do also is like when I get to here, okay, I'm gonna use the same nib and just go thick to thin. So you can see how I'm doing that. Thick to thin. Okay? And that's how you get that sense of push-pull when you're drawing or when you're inking with a brush. You're doing the same thing with the dots. So that's why I'm doing it that way. So what I'll do then is I'll then go in here and I'll do thick to thin here to show that there's a split. So that's the other thing also I thought was very important with doing this page was I want to give the sense that this is a shack. Well, how do you do that from the inside? Well, it's a shack. They're poor, which means that you're not going to have or they don't have the ability or the time or the resources to have the boards butt up perfectly together. You're going to have the gaps, which in the daytime lets light in. In the wintertime, it lets snow and the cold in. So that's important to show that these boards are not butted up next to each other perfectly. Whereas if I was doing like let's say a manor's house or a log cabin that was well constructed, uh, you wouldn't you do it differently so you get that sense that it's a sturdy wall to keep the elements out. This is not the case. If I was if I was like want to speak to the colorist, I would even go as far as tell the colorist, hey, put some when you're doing this, put some like a different tone along the edges on the bottom side, so it looks like it's like water stained. So the tops of the boards are water stained, and it gives a much more dingy, dirty look to it. So, but I mean, that's between John and his colorist. Plus, also, unless John's watching this and he takes notes to tell his colorist, by the time he gets this to the colorist, a lot of it will have happened. So, but no. So I'm just that's how I'm just explaining to you guys how I'm doing this with the dots and why I'm using the old nib with nice fat thick dots. So, because you can see, you should be able to see that it's beating up and there's a reflection of light. Whereas when you do really fine, okay, you can see how it's not beating up. So therefore, you don't have that reflection. So that's also the reason why, if you look at the panel up here, when you look at those bricks, it's the reason why I have the bricks as not being perfect bricks. These bricks that they use to make the fireplace were the bricks that weren't constructed properly, or the slave master was like, "Hey, this brick sidewalk, I need it replaced." They take out the old bricks, and then the slaves would take the broken up bricks and use those broken up bricks to make their fireplace. So that would be even farther. There's like, if again with a colorist, maybe put some green little splotches in here to indicate maybe that there's moss growing on these bricks, because that's the type of worn down, open to the elements type of house this is. So, but yeah, I really did enjoy the mini series of Origin, and just really enjoy it. I mean, I don't know if I'll get anybody else to have the opportunity to get anybody else to ever sign uh, these books who were the part of the creative team. If I do, great. If not, hey, I've got Paul. That's better than nothing. So, and then after that, we go to uh, day 198, and this is Parallax from Final Night. It was a one shot, and this is after Hal Jordan had turned evil and took on the identity of Parallax. And what it was, they had the Final Night event book, and I didn't buy the Final Night event book. I don't really know what it was about. All I know is there was something was happening, and it was like the sun was being blotted out or something. I don't forget what it was. Don't really know. All I know is that it required a sacrifice from a DC hero to save the day. And this issue was focused on Hal Jordan as Parallax and how he's being basically Kyle Rayner, the current Green Lantern, is like reaching out to him and saying, "Hey, I please, can you please return to good and help us save the day?" Because he did redeem himself in the end, sacrifice himself, and after the final night, uh, Green Lantern Hal Jordan becomes the Spectre. Now, John Ostrander and Tom Mandrake, they had been doing the Spectre series. They had been I guess from what I understand, they had already decided they were going to wrap up the series, and they wrapped it up in such a way to make the Spectre available for them to make Hal Jordan the Spectre, which I didn't have a problem with that, because you think about it, he is a vengeful person as a villain, over being defeated and his coastal city being destroyed. So having him as a god or a tormented god who in turn torments the evil of men, much like the shadow. What lurks in the shadow in the heart shadows of the hearts of men, of the hearts of evil, the specter. That's kind of like that's essentially like how the shadow was. So that's how the specter was always viewed. But over time, he went from just being a person who made evildoers face their own torment of the evils they did into a god figure. And as people have said in the past, and said, like the closest you get to a god character in uh, DC Comics is the Spectre. So, and after Hal Jordan became the Spectre, he showed up numerous times in the JSA series until finally they did the Green Lantern Rebirth. But no, I enjoyed this issue. I got hey. Plus, also it's a great book. I got Ron Mars has signed it. Mike McCune and Mark McKenna all have signed this book. So that's me. It's one of those where it's like, hey, yeah, this is cool. So to have all three of those signatures on this book, uh, nice, nice, nice. Very makes me very happy. And then lastly, we go to day 199 and day 200, and we have we have Phantom Stranger, issue number 7, signed by Andrew Peepoy, who did the inks or part of the inks over uh, Gene Ha, and then we have the Phantom number 8, which is the follow-up, signed by J.M. DeMatis, who was taking over the writing duties. And then, of course, we also had uh, Billy Tan, who was doing the art. And I liked this reboot because I always kind of liked the Phantom Stranger as a character, and he was one of those characters. Like when the first time I was introduced to him was in the Justice League of America, and it was one of those deals where it's like he every once in a while kind of show up, but you didn't really know anything about him. So as a kid, I was like, oh wow. I mean, it's a guy in a suit with a cape and a fedora. I mean, when I say suit, I mean he was wearing like the black shoes, the white with the white fabric flapped over the top of him, and he wore the nice white gloves, and he had pretty much a dress suit. I just thought it was interesting, along with the fedora, and you didn't know anything about him. And I know they did. Uh, they eventually made him like a Vertigo character, which I didn't. I was not a real big fan of Vertigo, really. So I never got that. Primarily because for me, for my art tastes, Vertigo had crappy artists. So, and I've discussed that in early videos about my opinion of Vertigo. So, but no, so this series was bringing the Phantom Stranger back into DC proper main universe, and I didn't know anything about him. And here, this was like when it first started, he was the Phantom Stranger, but he had a family, and basically him juggling between the two, and you could tell it's one of those where it's like he was using being the family man as a way to escape what he was doing, but you knew it wasn't going to last. Eventually, it was going to catch up to him. And this issue, number 7, he gets stabbed with the Spear of Destiny, and then in issue 8, here he's being taken to the House of Mystery, where the headquarters of Justice League Dark is, and they're trying to save him from being stabbed with the Spear of Destiny. Which the Spear of Destiny has always been a mystical symbol of great power in the DC universe. It was used first in World War II as Adolf Hitler had it, and that's the reason why Superman couldn't go over, or like Green Lantern, Superman, Wonder Woman. The reason why they couldn't go over to Germany to help the Allied soldiers because Hitler had the Spear of Destiny. If they did, they would fall under the control of Hitler, and that's the reason why only the Mr. Terrific, Sandman, the Tarantula. That's the reason why those are the only guys who would go over to France or Germany to fight with the soldiers, was because they did not have superpowers to be affected by the Spear of Destiny. So, okay, we're getting almost to the end here. So, but you can see how I'm doing this. Just going in nice and light. What I'll do is I'll do this board right here before I go. So what we're going to do is we're going to go, we pull this out of here, okay? So we want this black connected to the bricks, okay? And then we just go in, hit it hard, okay? So we have it, and we don't do it straight black. Let some white spots in there. And then as we go more towards the center, okay, we then give smaller dots. Because remember, this is a used up nib, but it still does the job, and it can do fine dots. So when we get it back to here, and we start hitting it hard again, and then by the time we get to here, oops, sorry about that, guys. By the time we get to here, we're hitting it hard again. And like I said, the whole point of doing this is so that way we get that sense of the boards aren't matching up correctly. And then, of course, so I drew the knot here off panel, did that so that way when I put in the wood grain, you can see that's wrapped around the knot. So, okay, there we go. So, it's going well. So, yeah, I'm going to work on up here. I'm going to work on this panel. Sorry. We'll work on this panel here. Okay, we'll work on that one off panel today. And then what I'll do is tomorrow when I do the video, I'll probably be working on this wood grain, and I'll be starting to work here. Now, don't be surprised if I get to a certain point where I'm not working on this panel and we go down and we work on this panel. And the reason why is because obviously we got black here, we got the hair here. More importantly, I do want to put a lot of work in here. So this broad area. So like, for instance, here, even though we got the chair and whatnot here, I'm going to have this whole back area with a tone of dots, okay, to push that back. So, but to do that, I'm going to have to hit a lot of the areas of the front so I know how dark that needs to be. So there might, don't be surprised if we get very quickly get to the point where I can't work on this uh, during videos because of needing to work on an area where I need to be focused and not talking to you guys. But I'll have something else to work on for you guys. So, guys, you have a great day. You know I'm having a great day. And as always, remember, life is stressful. Just take it all one dot at a time.